Good evening, everybody on the World Wide Web. Lord knows where you're looking in from, but this is really a serious greeting to all of you, and we have a very special evening in poetry tonight. Tonight we have two extremely interesting American poets, Anton Yakovlev and China Gruz. They're American poets with roots in Russia. And it's kind of one of the most beautiful aspects of immigration, I guess, into a country, but also the immigration into a poetry. Because as you all know, the sensibilities in all of these different languages are completely different. And when we look at Russian, when we look at like the Cyrillic alphabet, those symbols, even the letters, they seem to come from somewhere beyond what it is we can even understand. But when we hear it, and we will tonight, we can hear that it's beautiful. So I'm delighted to say that Anton, who will lead off the reading, brings very interesting sensibility into writing. He's a translator. In fact, he translated this book of Yesenin's, and I'm trying to hold it up so that it's right on the camera. This is his translations of Sergei Yesenin. And I was reading them, and they give you a strange and beautiful understanding of a kind of village life. He's the last poet in the village. That's the name of the book. But that understanding, that village understanding, is central. Anyway, without any further ado, I want to introduce Anton Yakovlev. Thank you, Anton. Take it away.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be reading at this event. So I'm going to read mostly my own work, although I will read one Yesenin poem shortly. So I'm going to start with a poem that I wrote a very long time ago, I think about 17 years ago, and I haven't read out loud in I don't know, 5 years, but I thought it would be interesting to start with it today. Ode to the Apocalyptic Cheeseballs. Ode to the Apocalyptic Cheeseballs. Like salt and water, you are my diet this week. Ash Wednesday has come and gone. It is now the 4th of July. The poplar blossoms are falling, making me remember my youth when things were awful. Tonight, I will visit a scholar. He will give me 2,000-year-old wine, and I will catch his prophecies with my mouth in a delicate coating of careful brie. He will tell me of what will happen in a few months, when birds shatter the sky like these poplar blossoms, turning to grassy stones as they reach the ground. The weight of his words is nourishment to my thoughts when I ride the bus, especially when I go to hell when I should be delivering something, when the creaking people I see below light up their eyes, then quickly fade into silence. You became part of my life one evening, and even my mornings since have been made of darkness. But I will choose you again if there is a fork in the road. Like the earth and the watermelons, you fly in my face. I digest you, words of wisdom about sunshine. And God forbid I go one day without you, three-dimensional pictures, kidnapping scenes of man with the absolute. The new nihilism left me screaming and sweating. God's hooks made me morph into a stingy elder swearing on his rarely used penis to kill the king. Master and Margarita fashioned me. I wear my hat upside down and often eat my oysters with mustard. More than that, however, I eat the cheese balls. A cheese ball for every commandment. The burning words of the scholar run all over my walls. I accuse you, nourishment of the world, of torture, little spheres plummeting through the summer, of dressing my existence. I love you. I walk through your merciless hail to rejoin the world for hours, and sometimes take a detour to the pond. Hearing solitary birds, recording them with a mic, trying to guess which peg leg of a tree they've mounted, I forget you. But you are the water on which I stand. For many years, while I was sinking and sinking, you fermented in the dusky caves in the south of France, watched over by babies to the thudding sound of the clock. Love children filled you up with pain and resilience. Contempt children walked the beat and reset the torches. Once, I even walked into that cave myself. I looked at you in the red light of the exit signs, put down my gun, and slowly walked to the station. The next poem I'm going to read is a poem by Sergei Yesenin from my book, The Last Poet of the Village, that James mentioned. It's a short poem, so I'll read the original before reading my translation. This poem was written by Sergei Yesenin in 1916. Месяц рогом облака бодает, в голубой купается пыли. В эту ночь никто не отгадает, отчего кричали журавли. В эту ночь к зеленому затону прибегла она из тростника. Золотые космы по хитону разметала белая рука. Прибегла, в ручей взглянула прыткий, опустилась с болью на пенек. И в глазах завяли маргаритки, как болотный гаснет огонек. На рассвете с вьющимся туманом уплыла и скрылась вдали. И кивал ей месяц за курганом, в голубой купаяся пыли. Swimming in the blue dust, the moon butts a cloud with its horn. This night, no one will guess why the herons screamed. This night, she ran through the reeds to the green backwater. Her white hand swept her tousled hair over her tunic. She ran up, glanced at the quick spring, and sat down on the stump in pain. In her eyes, the daisies wilted, the way a swamp light goes out. At dawn, through the spiraling fog, she swam away and vanished in the distance. And the moon, swimming in the blue dust, nodded to her from behind the hill. Sergei Yesenin. This next poem I'm going to read is one of my poems from my book Ordinary Impalers. It's called The Music Teacher. Her rigor mortis put everyone on edge. When Alan and I left her wake, things came to blows between us over a song by this star I happen to know, whose roadie just about beat me up one time for filming without permission. Alan just loved that hit single. Couldn't stand my flippant remarks. It's been years. I wonder if he still sits on his porch all day, waving his pretend conductor's baton at the middle schoolers of Glenwood Landing. True story, actually. The star was Gavin DeGraw, and Alan, who is an alias, but still a good friend of mine in spite of these misunderstandings, and actually a poet, and he has his first book of poetry coming out in the near future this year. This next poem was inspired or sort of imitates, or maybe is a parody, of a poem by Joseph Brodsky, which he wrote in English after immigrating to the United States. Again, a fairly short poem, so I'm going to read the Brodsky poem first, and then I'm going to read my poem. A Song by Joseph Brodsky. I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. I wish you sat on the sofa and I sat near. The handkerchief could be yours, the tear could be mine, chin-bound, though it could be, of course, the other way around. I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. I wish we were in my car and you'd shift the gear. We'd find ourselves elsewhere on an unknown shore, or else we'd repair to where we've been before. I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. I wish I knew no astronomy when stars appear, when the moon skims the water that sighs and shifts in its slumber. I wish it were still a quarter to dial your number. I wish you were here, dear, in this hemisphere, as I sit on the porch, sipping a beer. It's evening, the sun is setting, boys shout, and the gulls are crying. What's the point of forgetting if it's followed by dying? Joseph Brodsky. Here's my poem. Fire covered my eyes. Let me put it to you this way, dear. Let me put it to you this way. You speak to me so much, my eyes are burning away. I can no longer observe the evening with its she-dogs that piss and fart. I'm passing into the afterlife, dear. My epiphenomenal consciousness is coming apart. Let me be clear with you, dear. Let me be clear. You may be the only one talking, but many are the voices I hear. My inner ear is abuzz with howling, screeching, wailing, muttering, poltergeists. It's open season for all things Chthonian here. My basic humanity is pretty much bust. Let me come clean for once with you, dear. Let me come clean for once. I'm passing through a very unpleasant tunnel, connected dots in front of my eyes. I think I finally might be able to solve that 9-dot puzzle that haunted me as a child back when I was a kid. I think I'm finally able to think outside the box, dear. Never mind your nuclear chatter trying to pull me back on the grid. Let us be square on this, dear. Let us be square. Empty space calls out to me. A line is going beyond the limits of the square. Lines are converging at the central dot. My eyes are melting into a poisonous cloud. You speak to me so much, dear. Even my fucking bones stick out. Next poem is called At the James Joyce House. This is what I wanted to let you know. When I came home last night, I found my building repainted. Property management had renamed it from Ocean Plaza Apartments to James Joyce House, probably trying to boost their rentals next year. Neon lights above the front door displayed the new name in genuine Joyce handwriting, and all the condos had been rearranged the way James Joyce would have done it. The desk from which I had recited to you our surrealism was replaced with something faux Victorian. The dining chairs were also Joycean. An introductory booklet I found on the dinner table made a big deal of the way they were stylized so closely to his living room, you'd think it said on every last one of them. In the bathroom, the shells we had picked up, waddling for years around Cape Cod, were replaced with a single crumbling clamshell. But that shell bore a genuine autograph of James Joyce. The booklet boasted that property management had handed me an antique worth $20,000 just to pay me back for the inconvenience of rearranging my rooms and throwing out half my things. Honored as I am, this morning I spent 2 hours looking for a rusty nail to dip into my Jameson. The rustier, the better. I have no TV to distract me. James Joyce didn't have one. So now neither do I. The memory foam mattress on which I had lost our virginities had been taken away, now in a landfill. Not that I mind, of course. And yet, tears come out of my eyes for some reason. And I take walks to inspect the building's dead ends, looking for spots intact from remodeling. trying to get back to a past that included you. If you were here, though, the autograph of James Joyce would have made it all worth it. You would have wept on my shoulder to be so close to your hero. I would have tried to talk to you about us, but you would have circled back to the dead, to Leopold Bloom's unsavory diet, to the goat-like creatures Stephen Dedalus had dreamed up. A panther would have shrieked outside the window just then, as we kissed, and you would have turned your eyes to look at it, acting like I wasn't even present. That's okay, I'd say to myself. At least you're here. The Buried Man. The singer of my college graduation song hanged himself. The radio shakes like an engine on the edge of his desk. Belonging is the one stone tablet he never found. This morning it occurred to me, sunrise and documentaries was entirely God's responsibility, but the documentary of his life contained no outdoor scenes. If I thought more about death, I would want to change the color of the curtains in the room where they found him. I would never speak to his enemies, but I still buy the drinks they recommended and fill my napkins with contempt. Change the station. I don't want to listen to his last album. He was already going when he wrote it. He wandered into stables and punched the horses. At the end of the song, you can hear the freezing soap bubbles. In the background, people who will never ship out chat on a jetty. And if the sound were enhanced, you could hear the cormorants cheer. Did the room look bigger from the ceiling? Did he notice the daylight behind the curtains? Did the spiders in the walls disappear? Now everyone is falling in love with him. Since his suicide, you said we were all better off. I couldn't recall his eyes. My cheapest rental up the gravel road, hanging by fire forever. I saw him in skeleton sweat, noose on his neck. Tourists gathered, screaming reviews. He used to bark to himself, flooded the streets. Now you told me we all missed him too much. Your sunglasses gleamed. Fire under the door. His body shaking. This next poem is called Divorce Species. But the music stopped or came full circle to silence. An angelic voice spoke of payback, retaliation, revenge. And the volunteer gladiators, whose goal was death, faded out for a moment. Angels appeared to go with the angelic voice. Oh, wait, there were people. A man and a woman, hating each other, exhausted. They had been gladiators. They had killed each other and were in heaven. God was fatal, but he understood. A little child, their son, saw them in a dream. Heroically, he stood in the burning fires that had transformed Eden into temporary hell. His mom and dad were out of breath and leaned on each other. And then the music began again, and from behind the curtains re-emerged the battle hymn. The gladiators started to throw mud. The audience cheered, enjoying the show. The woman drowned in the mud. He got pulled under her somehow. Arriving in a fancy limousine, the poet looked sarcastically at the audience, a crowd too horny to go to heaven like those characters, although justice was on their side. And they went to confession each year, drinking the fighters' blood from the edges of the arena. And when the poet, sneering like a canonized ex-cannibal, electrocuted them, Eden brightened, and a dead couple fell repentantly, hand in hand, under their standing sun. This is my 2-poem warning. This next poem is called Chatter. Your haunting chirping thwacked a chord with me. I don't know why. I hated it at first. Your ping-pong words before the howling tree wheezed through my collar. Oh, you were the worst, springing your wine, trickling your holy tears over the humming of such specious spite it wasn't worth the croaking. Still, for years I've banged my head against your tumbling light. Buffoons guffaw over your anguished drones. Pissed citizens keep yelping about you, the way you bark inanely from your stones, a cackling, tick-tock, snap-crackle statue. You dunk your truth in dark that goes pop-pop, smooching with vrooming boink and blank and quack. No dying, though. Some elegance won't stop, not even when a soul dribbles to black. And so it hisses, this time-splattered song. And so it murmurs, this boom-boom of days. Your buzzing will go on after you're gone, putting us all in our pathetic place. And I'm going to close with a poem that's based on the memoir of Katharine Hepburn, and it's written in the voice of Katharine Hepburn, addressing Spencer Tracy about 20 years after he passed away, when she is moving out of her house that she's selling. Hepburn to Tracy, a dismantling. I say goodbye to lamps, to figurines, to the porch door you never left unlocked, to your insomnia, into your dreams, and to the horsehair chair in which you rocked. For 27 years you lived with me in this small house, and it's been 20 more since you got up that night to drink your tea and fell, face forward, on the kitchen floor. I'll miss our windows and our nothing view. You know, dear Spence, I've changed my laugh for you. Not that I hear it much, now you're away. I'll keep your sense of humor, your ennui, your books, your gate-legged table, and, I pray, that quiet way you sometimes looked at me. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Anton. It was beautiful poetry. Thank you, man. There's this ability to get close, like you pull out a real intimacy. It's amazing how you do it. Anyway, thank you so much for reading, and we're going to move now. And before we go on, we're going to be moving to Gina Gruz's poetry, and Anton actually has done some translations of Gina's poetry, so he's going to be reading some poems in Russian, and Gina's going to read them in Russian, the originals, and Anton is going to read his translations of Gina's poems in English. Forgive me. And Gina is a molecular biologist. We don't get many of them. She has a PhD in molecular biology from NYU. That blows me away. Anyway, and she's also got 2 books out. She's got Earthly Entities, and if you read her poetry, you'll understand the title of this much better, Radiant Solitude. And when you read Gina's poetry, you can certainly pick up on a very radiant solitude, only apparent to poets and to molecular biologists. But there you have it. So let me give you Gina Gruz, who's going to read poetry in Russian, and then Anton Yakovlev, who will read his translations of those same poems. So, please.
Hello, James. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to read here. And thank you, Anton, for reading translations of my work. And I would like to read a little bit from my new poems that have a strong Russian theme, and then a couple of poems from my book, Earthly Energies. And then we'll finish with a poem that Anton translated most recently. Without no further ado, I'm gonna start. Я стояла на углу и глядела на афишу. Так смотрит скупой рыцарь на свой сундук. Я смотрела на небо, и небо было выше Всевышнего. Тяжесть поцелуев на запястье Маргариты. Время сатаны, время брачной ночи, время черствой черноты.
I stood in a corner and stared at the billboard, the way the miserly knight stares into his chest. I stared at the sky, and the sky was higher than the Almighty. The weight of kisses on Margarita's wrist, the time of Satan, the time of the wedding night, the time of callous blackness.
Ночь. Там, где камыши спят, где кукушка поет, в крапинку подкидыш яйцо, сплетенное гнездо кладет. Что сказала, то и пожелала. Песня колыбельная тоскует. Из часов кукушка на стене кукует.
Night. Out where the cattails sleep, where the cuckoo sings, throwing her speckled egg into the woven nest. What I said was exactly what I wished for. A lullaby languishes. The clock cuckoo warbles on the wall.
Поминки. Снизу, затопляя все гуще красной ордой, смерть, смешанная с бесцельной жизнью, смешна, как важное торжество похорон. Вольная песня далеких подобий, где-то переговариваются сосны, служба идет, и дрова трещат в топке, и бабки в грубых шубах, и мужики с красными носами в ожидании водки и ветчины помянут отбывшего почетного сорняка.
The wake. Flooding everything with thicker and thicker red, death mixed with aimless life is as ludicrous as a pompous funeral ceremony, a freewheeling song of distant likenesses. Somewhere the pines are talking to each other. The mass goes on. The wood crackles in the furnace. Old women in coarse fur coats and red-nosed men are waiting for vodka and ham to commemorate the departed illustrious weed.
Молва. Услышала о себе, будто крупу перебирают на клеенке, петухи на заборе кукареку, мужики в панамках забивают козла, бабки семечки лузгают на крыльце. Пионерка в порванных колготках позавчера кузнецу дала. Во дворе пахнет селедкой, натаскали склок даровые псы, чтобы чужих гнать со двора, гоняются за собственными хвостами.
Rumors. I hear them talk about me as though they're sorting grain on a tablecloth. Roosters crow on a fence. Local dudes play dominoes. Old women on the porch nibble on sunflower seeds. A pioneer in ripped pantyhose let the blacksmith fuck her the other day. The yard smells like herring. Dogs have had it with fighting. Forgetting to drive strangers from the yard, they chase their own tails.
Продукты. Оторговал мясник мозги скота оптом. Уменьшите забой бычков в обществе. Рабочий человек к безделью привыкший, посвежел лицом, ноздри наизнанку. В мясокомбинате деньги молчаливо выжимают. Мясорубка. Курей студенческих перепродают. Синие крылья советов. пернатые друзья.
Groceries. The butcher sold the cattle brains in bulk. Reduced the slaughter of cows in society. The working man, accustomed to idleness, freshened up his face, nostrils inside out. At the meatpacking plant, they quietly squeeze you for money. Meat grinder. KFC student discounted wings, resold at premium price. Blue Soviet wings. Feathered friends.
The next poem is called Nikolai Nikolaevich, and I would like to say a couple of words about it. So this is the book based on which this poem was inspired. This guy used Oleshkovsky. I think he's well into his 90s. He's a professor at Yale, I believe. I don't remember exactly. And I came to his reading sometimes 2 years ago, and I thought it was amazing. And that was the poem that I wrote after reading the book and listening to his talk. Николай Николаевич. Академик-вегетарианец предлагает пролетариату в пробирку. Он науку продвигает семимильными шагами. Он мясо получает по карточке. Зарплату в анус спускает царь науки. Бритва – это утром при жене. А днем научный работник лабораторными балуется делами. На пол живчиков стряхивает. Племя будущих полков пламенных.
Nikolai Nikolaevich, a vegetarian academic, jerks off his sperm into a test tube, advances science by seed-mile steps, trades his food stamps for meat. The Tsar of science shits his salary away. A razor blade in the morning before his wife. During the day, the scientist, dabbling in laboratory projects, shakes off live specimens onto the floor. A tribe of future fiery regiments.
Okay, the next series of poems is gonna be from my book Earthly Entities, and some of them have a strong Russian theme and other just more general theme. Ферзь. По черно-белым квадратам квартир я шагала, как проходная пешка. Я лежала на доске полусбитая, без защиты. Ко мне прикасались руки. Люди в штатском играли в Чапаева, не видя меня. Другие прятали подло в карман. Или я валялась рядом с шахматной доской. И еще одна игра 5 минут спустя. Черный квадрат иконы. Не знаю, как я доползла до королевского ранга. Но рожденную пешкой почитаю теперь ферзем.
Queen. I moved like a passed pawn across black and white squares of apartments. I lay on the board, half beaten, defenseless, touched by many hands. People in plain clothes played Chapayev, not seeing me. Others concealed me dishonorably in their pockets. Or else I lay around next to the chessboard. Another game in 5 minutes. An icon's black square. No idea how I've managed to crawl all the way to a royal rank. But the one born a pawn is now revered as a queen.
The next poem is called House Museum of Alexander Blok. So he is kind of an icon of silver century of Russian poetry, and a little bit in line with Sergei Yesenin theme that Anton was mentioning earlier. Дом-музей Блока. Еду в музей Блока. Там немного людей, есть чем дышать. Дешевый ресторан. И прекрасная незнакомка хохочет платье. Ванька и Кармен бесстыдно и непробудно грешат. Демон золотокудрый. Холодным взглядом глядит и бушует снежная весна. Не отводя глаза от книги, плачет ребенок. И ветер молчит в дюнах. Я не уйду отсюда никогда.
Alexander Blok, House Museum. I'm going to the Block Museum. Not many people there. Easy to breathe. And a cheap restaurant. And a beautiful stranger laughs with her dress. Vanka and Carmen shamelessly and ceaselessly sin. The golden-haired demon looks on, with an icy gaze, and a snowy spring rages. A child is crying, not taking his eyes off a book. And the wind stays silent in the dunes. I will never leave here.
Спасение. Я обвязал шею веревкой. Не повеситься ли на заборе? От здравых мыслей мне становится тошно. Нравоучения, что лжецы продавали, как детей в плен. Не заметив слез, слова озноба дрожали, и деньги на завтрак не давала мама. Я устала от людской лютости и вышла на воздух.
Salvation. Rope on my neck. Why not hang myself on the fence? Reasonable thoughts make me nauseous. Bromides sold by liars, like children into slavery. Not noticing tears, shivering words. Mom wouldn't give money for breakfast. Tired of human ferocity, I stepped out to get some air.
Борьба. Руки, подобные клещам, жарко-рыжая суета глаз, гнетущий танец с поклонами, следы зубов, железная дверь холодного эха, царапины немой лампочки, докучающая темнота пустой койки, мускулистый и не будущего.
Struggle. Hands like claws, red-hot scurrying eyes, oppressive dance with bowing. Traces of teeth, iron door of a cold echo, scars of a mute lamp, nagging darkness of an empty bunk bed, muscular shadows of the future.
Разрыв. Смерть дышащего тела в четырехкомнатной сердце тюрьмы. Ненависть порезанной любви. Нет стержня у меня, и боль не чувствую. Волосы, как сорняк на голове. Ни шепот, ни крик, только грусть и грубость. Трижды напомнила ночь о том, что теперь мы чужие.
Rapture. Death of a breathing body in the 4-room heart of a prison. Resentment of a scarred love. I have no spine and feel no pain. Hair like weeds on my head. Neither scream nor whisper, only sadness and rudeness. 3 times the night reminded me that we are strangers now.
Проклятие. Я никогда не знала ревности, и женщин моих с ним делила. И был договор, и уважение. И теперь он вытащил кишки из меня, решил меня уложить в психушку. Ой, чтобы ты был так мертв, как я верила в тебя. Чтобы ты и не проснулся во время бреда. Я в наручниках, я под остухом, и детям ты говоришь бредни, сдохни в своей олимпийской светлости.
A curse. I never knew jealousy. I shared my women with him. We had an understanding and mutual respect. And now he's gutted me, institutionalized me. Oh, may you be as dead as my faith in you. May you never wake from delirium. I'm handcuffed. I'm a whore. You lie to the children. May you croak in your Olympian luminescence.
So if we have time before Anton and I are gonna read the last poem, maybe I can read one poem in English that was recently written. That's gonna be my first attempt. It's called Devil and Monk. Fast asleep, he was fighting a boyish devil, fashionable flesh in a faceless city, a fashion iron swaying in disco pants. The sleeper was a monk swaddled in a white-out wind. Out of the blank blue came a firmness that forced its way into devil's dance. Fast asleep, sleep, he was fighting a boyish devil, who, giggling, was on a mattress next to him. Silence kissed the slipper's foolish lashes, and love awakened their blasphemy, passion. All right, and the last poem called «Ой». В толпе вот здесь, напротив, где-то здесь, поэт кричал, рыдал, рычал, сжигал свои листы, священные фрагменты, соединяющие вас и нас. Листы горели, холодный пламень осени, осень, дымка прохладного в прозрачном небе. Вот здесь, на улице, на площади, меж нас, он сжег свои листы, свои слова. Слова сливались в вой. Попробуй нас на вкус, нас от рассвета до заката. Работа робота, забота здание завода. Вас осознание зевота, тоска, рыдание и рвота, налогов и доходов квота, вас сытых, мытых и забытых, вас чисто выбритых, поетых. Он вереницей слов избитых к нам возовет. Поэт ревет, поэт рыдает, молча ждет листы, открытые ладони, обрывки мысли. Взвизг нельзя, вас вой не смей, поэт и в Бога душу мать, плевать. Он большинство молчит, не внемлет, поэт по горло втоптан в землю, толпа галдит и не приемлет его горение туши, туши горячий крик души. Толпа ревущая и жжущая, толпа сосущая и сущая, топя и вещая и сущая. Орет туши. Я видел крик поэта в листьях горящих белым дымом. Лицо разорвано улыбкой, толпа проходит молча мимо. Я наблюдал поэта руки, из коих вырвались звуки, ладоней двух раскрыта книга, пылают буквы мимо, листьев падают, творчи поделись, вообще огонь его души уходит в пепел, холодный, словно вы.
Ouch. Here in the crowd, right here, across from here, the poet screamed, sobbed, growled, roared, burned his papers, his sacred fragments, linking you and us. The papers burned. Cold flame of autumn, blue, a light cool smoke in the clear sky, right here, out in the street, out in the square, between us. He burned his papers, burned his words. The words merged into howling. Taste us, taste us from dawn to dusk. Work a robot's worry, factory forgotten, knowing you is yawning, anguished sob and vomit, tax and income quota. You well-fed, forgotten, you clean-shaven, eaten. With hackneyed words, he will call out to us. The poet roars, the poet sobs, silently burns his papers, open palms, pieces of thought. Don't squeal, don't dare to howl. Poet, don't dare to spit at God, soul, mother. Mostly he's silent, won't react, trampled neck-deep into the ground. The crowd is howling, won't accept his conflagration. Put it out. Put out the screaming, burning soul. The crowd that wails, the crowd that neighs, the crowd that sucks, the crowd that pisses, drowning the portents and the essence. The crowd screams, put it out. I saw the poet screaming in the leaves, in papers burning with white smoke, his face ripped by a smile. The crowd walked by in silence. I watched the poet's hands burst into sound, the book of his two palms thrown open wide, letters of flame and rushing by. the carrion of leaves. Share it, Creator. No use. The fire of his soul has gone to ash, as cold as you.
Thank you.
Bravo, that was beautiful. The iron door of a cold echo. I mean, some of these lines were just, they got nailed into my head. They were beautiful lines, beautiful. Well, everybody, I wish that we were all in one room so you could applaud these incredible poets. I want to thank Anton and Gina for giving us this beautiful reading and for running that Russian stream into this English stream and giving us another way to look at things. And it was really beautiful. Thanks again. And if you could hear, if we could all hear, everybody outside is clapping now. If we could take cameras over the world, you would see people applauding and all over on every continent. It was gorgeous. They're so happy, and I am too. And so thanks again. And as the faithful MC, I'm going to introduce the next reader, although I'm still thrilled with the one we just finished. Anyway, on May 4th, we're going to continue in our series, or a little mini series within our series, of celebrating particular magazines. The magazine on May 4th will be celebrating. I want to, boy, Gina and Anton were great. I'm sorry. On May 4th, we're going to be celebrating Jeffrey Cypher's Wright poetry, Live Mag. He's editing Live Mag. We're going to have Sharon Mesmer. We're going to have Larissa Schmelo. We're going to have poets, and we're going to celebrate that magazine. We're going to read from the book. We're going to have art. So please join us again on May 4th. And we're going to continue in this series. And I got to get me some more Russian poetry, man. That was so beautiful. That was, this line killed me. The iron door of a cold echo. I know exactly what that is. And I didn't even know it existed before. I'd never thought about it before. Gina's poetry made me think about something. And now I have a little bit of a bigger world. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Anton. And thanks to all of you for making this possible. You know, everything you see, whether it's a concert, a poetry reading, a gallery of paintings, they're only there because of audiences. If nobody's paying attention, they fold up and go away. The audience is the gallery. And so I want to say thank you to you guys for making this relevant by your attention and by the beauty of it itself. So with that, I'll be looking forward to seeing you again on May 4th, when we will be paying tribute and I guess promoting Live Mag. Jeffrey Cypher's Wright's editorial crazy taste to go with his crazy, beautiful poetry. Goodbye, everybody.